So let's get into some of these methods because they're pretty straightforward. We hear things through our friends, through online about box breathing, nasal breathing, alternate nostrils, fire breathing, Wim Hof. Are there certain kind of go-to methods for different situations, or is it one way of breathing, throughout the entire day? Or how do you approach, what's your perspective and mindset around these methods?
So when I first started really digging into this subject, it was completely overwhelming because you've got these yoga books with like 600 different breathing methods that have all these crazy names. Then you have Wim Hof method, which is saying breathe way more, and that's good for you. Then you have Buteyko or other yoga methods where they're saying breathe less, hardly breathe at all, and that's good for you. So they all seem to be countering one another. But once you get into this, you understand that there are different ways to breathe for different circumstances. If you want more energy, if you want to go to sleep, if you want to focus, if you want to digest food better. So one person who has studied breathing for decades told me there are as many ways of breathing as there are foods to eat. And just how different foods can affect our bodies differently, we can breathe in different ways and affect our bodies and minds differently as well. So I guess so many of these things are based around this one premise, the variations on the same theme, that the more you exhale, more slowly you exhale, the more relaxed you will be. And the more you inhale, the more amped you're going to get. And you can see this for yourself by placing your hand on your heart, taking an inhale to a count of about 5, and then exhaling to about 7 or 8 if you can, softly. You're going to notice your heart rate speeding up as you inhale and slowing down when you exhale. So box breathing is one of these variations on this theme. Guess what you're doing when you're box breathing? You're inhaling for 4, you're either holding your breath or you're exhaling for 3/4 of the time. What's that going to do to your nervous system? It's going to calm you down. It's also going to force you to breathe less so you can get more oxygen more easily. During a breath hold, after about 30 seconds, the brain actually gets more oxygen than if you were breathing consistently. So the brain is very smart at utilizing energy. So you could go into 4-7-8 breathing as well, and you're going to notice these same themes coming up. Inhale to 4, hold for 7, exhale to 8. What's going on there? 3/4 of the time you're exhaling or holding your breath. And there are a zillion different ways to a zillion different methods that have a zillion different names, but they're all working on the same premise.
Right. So that principle, so there's a promise behind the principle of taking more time to exhale, and that's down regulating your nervous system, maybe putting you in more of a parasympathetic, maybe rest and digest. Now, let's talk about in context of performance. Like as you span the day, the time that you're awake, and sleeping is different. I'm hoping more what I'm doing during the day is actually becoming more ingrained in my habits at night, but we could talk about that also as well. But are there certain points throughout the day when you need to perform? Like we tell people to study or to learn for maybe 30, 45 minutes and then take a brain break. And in that 5-minute we do things like hydrate, or we do things like move, get some fresh air and to breathe. What would you recommend during that time if somebody is, let's say, studying or they're on Zoom calls? What kind of breathing would you recommend there?
So when we're studying, we need to be awake, so we don't want to relax ourselves too much. And some of these breathing methods, when you're holding your breath and exhaling longer than you're inhaling, will maybe relax you too much. You want to be balanced in these states. So the best breathing method, it's so deceptively simple, people are going to say, oh, this isn't going to do anything for me. But give it a try and you'll see, and check out the scientific studies, and you can also see for yourself. It's just to inhale at a rate of about 5 to 6 seconds and exhale at a rate of about 5 to 6 seconds. Do this through your nose in this rhythmic pattern. So just by breathing this way, you're balancing your nervous system, but you are also able to sort of you can organize different areas in your brain, the emotional areas with the frontal cortex. And they found this, that the same thing doesn't happen with the nose. Or doesn't happen with the mouth. It only happens when you're breathing through the nose in this rhythmic way. You can bring these different brain areas online, and the amplitude and the brain waves actually change. These different congregations of neurons in your brain will change to allow you to remember things more easily.
Now, in your work, have you looked into research between nostrils, like your left and your right? And how can we use that knowledge and wisdom to further everyone's performance?
Yeah, so this has been around in Hindu culture for thousands of years, alternate nostril breathing, or nadi shodhana, whatever you want to call it. So our bodies naturally will shift the airflow through our nostrils throughout the day. Every 30 minutes to around 3 or 4 hours, you will become left nostril dominant or right nostril dominant. And sometimes it's even, but mostly it's shifting back and forth. So for a long time, scientists have known this for over 100 years, but they said, why would the body possibly do this? So they started finding out around 30 years ago, when they started conducting scientific studies, that breathing air through these different nostrils affects the brain and affects the bodies in different ways. So inhaling through your right nostril, the yogi said this would heat your body up, and it's been shown to increase heart rate, increase blood pressure, and activate the left side of your brain a little more.
Okay. And then, so people who are just listening to this, so breathing through your right, that means you're holding your left nostril closed.
That's exactly right. And so breathing through the left nostril, inhaling and exhaling through the left nostril, will calm the body down. So it activates more of the quote unquote right side of the brain, and heart rate will go down, blood pressure will go down. So yogis have been doing this forever, but luckily now we have scientific instruments that can actually measure to see what happens in the brain, what happens in the body when we breathe this way. So you can use this alternate nostril breathing. Once again, there's dozens and dozens of ways to do this, but it's a great way of just checking in and rebalancing yourself by taking control of these otherwise autonomic functions.
And when you exhale, you're exhaling through your nostrils as well when you're doing that exercise, and not your mouth.
Yes. Inhale through the right is the strongest sympathetic or heating effect. Exhale is much less so. So exhale is more considered the same as an inhale through the left. This is very complicated and weird. So it's basically the inhale is the one that's stimulating through the right, and through the left, inhaling and exhaling has the same calming effect.
If you're listening to this on Spotify or Pandora or iTunes, I recommend you check this out also on YouTube as well, and make sure you subscribe for more of this. How about, so that's the context of these brain breaks. What about, let's say, when you want to be able to go to sleep? Do you focus, do you have a routine for yourself, or with people that you've done research feedback on ways to be able to optimize your sleep?
Sure. So to be clear, I'm a science journalist, and a lot of people now think I am a breathing guru who is the best breather in the world, and that is so far from the truth. My job was to go out into this world and talk to some of the best breathers in the world and scientists. That's not to say I didn't pick up a bunch of tricks from them and haven't incorporated them into my life, but I think what I do is just what I've found has worked. So there's a bunch of other methods in the book and on free on the website for what might work for other people. But personally, I find that exhaling more can really put me in the zone. And when I was flying around a lot, I thought on an airplane, this was the quickest way of relaxing myself and going to sleep, is taking control of my breath. That 4-7-8 breathing, you'd start with a couple of those sighs. Then you can inhale to a count of 4 through the nose softly. Hold for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can see you right now. You can see that maybe this is the wrong breathing technique to be doing on a podcast, but this instantly, I mean, within a few seconds, shifts your body from that sympathetic, stressful state into this very calming state. And some people say, oh, this is just a placebo effect. Put on your heart rate variability monitor, check your blood pressure before and after, do your own measurements, and you will see. I've done this a zillion times in labs, and it is so profound and powerful. This is not a subtle thing. And I could tell Jim almost just fell asleep for
This is true. I felt myself really down regulating.